The late afternoon park was quiet, golden leaves scattered across the walking path. A little girl sat crying on a stone bench, her eyes red and swollen with tears. The single father stopped in his tracks, kneeling down to comfort her. "Are you lost, sweetheart?" The child grabbed his hand tightly, nodding through her sobs. He walked her to the nearby house. When the door opened, his past stood before him, and time stopped completely. Daniel Hayes, 37, pushed his daughter Emily's stroller through Riverside Park with the tired determination of someone who'd learned to find joy in small moments. His mechanic's uniform was stained with oil from another long day at Murphy's garage, where he fixed other people's cars and dreamed of better days for his 8-year-old daughter. The neighborhood mothers often whispered about him behind their designer coffee cups. Poor Emily, having to grow up with just her father. He does his best, but what does a man know about raising a little girl? She'll never have the advantages other children have. Daniel had heard it all before. Since his wife Sarah died of cancer 3 years ago, he'd been Emily's entire world. Cook, cleaner, homework helper, bedtime story reader, and protector against a world that seemed to judge single fathers more harshly than single mothers. Emily, meanwhile, remained blissfully unaware of their financial struggles or social status. To her, Daniel was simply the greatest hero who'd ever lived. Her school backpack was covered with drawings she'd made, stick figures labeled "Daddy My Hero" and "Best Dad Ever" in her careful 8-year-old handwriting. "Daddy, look!" Emily pointed excitedly at a small playground where several children were playing on swings. "Can we stop for a few minutes?" Daniel checked his watch. They had time before dinner, and Emily had been cooped up at after-school care all day while he worked. Of course, sweetheart, but just for a little while. As Emily ran toward the swings, Daniel noticed another child sitting alone on a bench near the edge of the playground. The little girl, maybe 6 years old, was crying with the kind of heartbroken sobs that only children can produce. Raw, unfiltered despair that made Daniel's chest ache with sympathy. She was dressed in a rumpled pink dress that had probably been expensive once, clutching a worn teddy bear to her chest. Her long dark hair was tangled, and she looked utterly lost and afraid. Daniel approached slowly, the way he'd learned to approach frightened animals at the shelter where he sometimes volunteered. "Hey there, sweetheart," he said gently, crouching down to her eye level. "Are you okay? Are you lost?" The little girl looked up with enormous brown eyes swimming in tears. She nodded vigorously, unable to speak through her crying. "Where do you live, honey? Can you show me?" The child pointed down the street toward a row of elegant Victorian houses that Daniel had always admired from a distance. The kind of homes where people who'd never worried about mortgage payments lived comfortable lives. Emily, noticing the commotion, abandoned the swings and came running over. Without hesitation, she pulled off her small denim jacket and draped it around the crying girl's shoulders. "Don't cry," Emily said with the simple wisdom of childhood. "We're friends now. Daddy will help you get home." Daniel carried the little girl while Emily held her hand, the three of them walking slowly down the tree-lined street toward the house the child had pointed to. The Victorian mansion at the end of the block was painted a soft blue with white trim, surrounded by a carefully maintained garden that spoke of both wealth and love. "What's your name, sweetheart?" Daniel asked gently as they walked. "Lily," the little girl whispered, the first word she'd spoken since they found her. "That's a beautiful name," Emily said brightly. "I'm Emily, and this is my daddy. He's the best daddy in the whole world." Daniel felt his heart squeeze at his daughter's unwavering faith in him, even as he wondered what kind of life this obviously well-cared-for child came from. The house they approached was worth more than he'd make in 10 years of fixing cars. When they reached the front door, Daniel set Lily down gently and knocked. He could hear footsteps approaching, then the sound of locks being turned. The door swung open, and Daniel's world tilted completely off its axis. Sophia Carter stood in the doorway, and 15 years fell away in an instant. She was 35 now, more beautiful than he remembered, with the same warm brown eyes that had once looked at him like he was her entire future. Her dark hair was shorter now, styled in an elegant bob, and she wore the kind of casually expensive clothes that suggested success and security, but the expression on her face when she saw him was pure shock, followed by something that looked like joy, fear, and heartbreak all mixed together. "Lily!" Sophia gasped, immediately dropping to her knees to gather the little girl into her arms. "Oh my God, baby, where were you?" Mommy was so scared. "I got lost at the park," Lily sobbed into her mother's shoulder. "But he found me, and Emily gave me her jacket." It was only then that Sophia looked up at Daniel, really looked at him, and whispered, "Daniel, is it really you?" Emily tugged on Daniel's shirt, confused by the sudden tension in the air. "Daddy, do you know Lily's mommy?" Daniel's throat felt like sandpaper. We used to know each other, a long time ago." Sophia stood slowly, still holding Lily, her eyes never leaving Daniel's face. "Please," she said quietly, "come inside. Both of you." The house was exactly what Daniel had expected. Beautiful, tasteful, comfortable. Family photos lined the mantelpiece, and Daniel caught glimpses of Sophia with a man he didn't recognize. Both of them holding baby Lily, all of them smiling. "Coffee?" Sophia asked, her voice slightly shaky. "I just made some." As they settled in the living room, Emily and Lily immediately began playing together with a dollhouse in the corner, their earlier tears forgotten. Children had an amazing ability to live entirely in the present moment. "You have a daughter," Sophia said, watching Emily with obvious affection. "Her name's Emily." "She's 8, Daniel replied. "Her mother, Sarah, died 3 years ago. Cancer." Sophia's face crumpled with genuine sympathy. "Daniel, I'm so sorry. I had no idea." "And you," Daniel said carefully, nodding toward the photos. "You got married." "I did. James was a good man. He died in a car accident 2 years ago." Sophia's voice was steady, but Daniel could hear the pain underneath. "Lily was only 4. She barely remembers him." They sat in silence for a moment, both processing the weight of loss, the strange coincidence that had brought them back together, the lives they'd built separately after their paths had diverged. "I never forgot you," Sophia said suddenly, so quietly that Daniel almost didn't hear her. From her pocket, she pulled out a faded blue handkerchief, the one he'd given her the day they'd said goodbye 15 years ago. "I kept this," she whispered. "All these years, through everything. I kept it." Word of their reunion spread quickly through their small town, as gossip always does in places where everyone knows everyone else's business. Within a week, the local coffee shops were buzzing with speculation about the struggling single father and the wealthy widow who'd apparently rekindled some old flame. The reactions were predictably mixed and often cruel. Some people found the coincidence romantic, while others saw it as opportunistic on Daniel's part. "He's obviously after her money," Daniel overheard one woman say at the grocery store. Why else would a mechanic be sniffing around someone like Sophia Carter? The comment stung, but what hurt worse was seeing how the gossip affected Emily and Lily. The two girls had become inseparable friends, having play dates after school and weekend adventures in Sophia's backyard. But now other parents were whispering about their friendship too. The situation came to a head when Richard Carter, Sophia's late husband's younger brother, decided to intervene. As the executor of James's estate, he felt entitled to protect what he saw as the family's interests. "Sophia," Richard said during an unannounced visit to her home, "people are talking. This man you've been seeing, do you really know anything about him? His background, his motives?" Daniel happened to arrive just as Richard was speaking, bringing Emily for a play date with Lily. He stood frozen in the doorway, Emily's small hand in his, as Richard continued his character assassination. "I had him investigated," Richard announced, pulling out a folder. "He's barely making ends meet, working 2 jobs, living in a rental apartment. His wife left him significant medical debt before she died. Don't you see? He's using you, and he's using that poor child's friendship with Lily to get close to our family." Sophia's face went white, not with shock at the information, but with fury at Richard's invasion of privacy. "How dare you investigate him behind my back? Someone has to protect you from making another mistake," Richard shot back. "James left you and Lily well provided for, but only if you make smart choices. Getting involved with some desperate single father isn't smart, Sophia." Emily, who had been listening to every word, suddenly spoke up with the clarity that only children possess. "My daddy isn't desperate. He's the bravest person I know. And he doesn't need your money because he already has everything he needs. He has me, And now he has you and Lily too. The simple truth of Emily's words hit everyone in the room like a physical blow. Daniel knelt down and gathered his daughter close, his voice rough with emotion when he spoke. Emily's right. I don't need anything from Sophia except her friendship, but I won't have my daughter subjected to this kind of suspicion and judgment. He started to leave, but Sophia stepped forward and took his hand. Don't go, she said firmly. Richard, I think you should leave. This is my home, my life, and my choice. Sophia, think about what you're doing. I am thinking, she interrupted, her voice stronger than Daniel had ever heard it. I'm thinking about the fact that Daniel found my daughter crying in a park and brought her home safely, asking for nothing in return. I'm thinking about how Emily has been the best friend Lily's ever had. I'm thinking about how, for the first time in 2 years, I've been genuinely happy. She turned to Daniel, her eyes bright with unshed tears. 15 years ago, I made the biggest mistake of my life when I let you go, because other people said we came from different worlds. I'm not making that mistake again. From her jewelry box, Sophia retrieved the blue handkerchief Daniel had given her all those years ago. But instead of giving it back to him, she tied it around both their hands, the way children do when they're making promises. This handkerchief has been with me through college, my marriage, motherhood, widowhood, every major moment of my life, she said, because even when I was building a life with someone else, part of my heart was always waiting for you to come back. Daniel's voice broke when he replied, I never stopped loving you, Sophia. Not for a single day in 15 years. Emily and Lily, who had been watching the adult drama with the intense focus children bring to important moments, suddenly burst into applause. Does this mean we're going to be sisters? Lily asked hopefully. If you want us to be, Emily replied, and the two little girls hugged like they'd just solved all the world's problems. The transition wasn't immediate or without challenges, but love, real, mature love between adults who'd learned what truly mattered, has a way of smoothing even the roughest paths. Daniel kept his job at Murphy's Garage, but with Sophia's encouragement and business acumen, they opened a small automotive training program for young people who couldn't afford traditional trade school. Daniel taught the mechanical skills while Sophia handled the business side, and together they created something neither could have built alone. Emily and Lily became the sisters they declared themselves to be, sharing rooms during sleepovers, trading clothes, and forming the kind of bond that would last their entire lives. Sophia marveled at Emily's resilience and creativity, while Daniel was amazed by Lily's curiosity and kindness, qualities he could see she'd inherited from her mother. You know what's funny? Sophia said one evening as they sat on her back porch, watching the girls play in the yard while fireflies blinked in the growing darkness. I spent years trying to give Lily everything money could buy, but what she needed most was a friend like Emily. And I spent years worrying that I couldn't give Emily enough, Daniel replied, pulling Sophia closer. Turns out what she needed most was a bigger family. The gossip gradually died down as the community saw how genuine their relationship was, how well their families blended, and how their combined efforts were actually making their town a better place through the automotive program and their volunteer work. 6 months after their reunion, Daniel made an official proposal, not with an expensive ring, but with a simple band he'd crafted himself from silver, inscribed with the date they'd first met as teenagers. I know I'm not the man you probably thought you'd end up with, he said, kneeling in Sophia's garden while Emily and Lily watched from the window, barely able to contain their excitement. You're exactly the man I've been waiting for, Sophia replied, tears streaming down her face. You always have been. Their wedding was small and simple, held in the same park where Daniel had first found Lily crying. Emily was maid of honor, Lily was the flower girl, and their handmade programs included a note. Sometimes the most beautiful love stories begin with the smallest acts of kindness. The blue handkerchief that had connected them through 15 years of separation was incorporated into Sophia's bouquet, a symbol of how some things are meant to last forever, even when they seem lost. As they danced to their first song as husband and wife, with Emily and Lily dancing beside them, Daniel whispered in Sophia's ear, "Thank God for crying little girls in parks." 1 year later, at the graduation ceremony for their first class of automotive students, Daniel stood at the podium with Sophia beside him, Emily and Lily beaming from the front row. "A year ago, I found a little girl crying in the park," Daniel told the assembled crowd. "When I knocked on her door to bring her home, I discovered that sometimes fate uses the smallest moments to write the biggest love stories." Sophia squeezed his hand as their students and their families applauded, and Emily and Lily cheered loudly from their seats. Destiny often disguises itself as ordinary kindness, and the paths that lead us home sometimes begin with helping a stranger find theirs.